Hi, my name is Wyatt, and I'm a Library Service Associate at the Gear Branch Library. I graduated from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln with my Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, where I also worked in the College of Business Career Center as a peer career coach. A big part of my job was working with students one-on-one to help them develop their job application materials. So I'm excited to share some tips with you today about resume writing. Let's get started.
We are all at different places in our career journeys. Some of you may be used to resume writing, and some of you may have never made a resume before. That is definitely okay. In this video, I will be talking about what a resume is, how you use a resume, the different parts of a resume, how to format a resume, and bullet statements, which make up a resume. Throughout the video, I will be showing examples and some formatting tips. It is important, though, to note that there really isn't one correct way to structure your resume. Different jobs require different skills, and everyone has unique experiences, so you should format your resume in a way that makes you feel comfortable and confident. What I will be talking about are some guidelines and best practices to make sure that you have a strong career tool going forward. Now, I know resume formatting can be tricky. I regularly get in fights with Microsoft Word. To help you get started, I've put together a template that you can download and edit. You can go to lincolnlibraries.org/resume2020 to download the template and example resumes. The template uses the style of formatting I usually like, but if you prefer a different style, you can absolutely do that. Later on, I will also talk about resources available from Lincoln City Libraries that provide other resume templates and builders that you can use. I will also talk more about formatting later on, but wanted you to know about the template in case you want to work as you watch. Now first, what is a resume? A resume is a job application tool usually used by an individual when they are looking for a job or when they are applying to educational programs or for scholarships. A resume generally looks something like this. A resume is an overview of your experience, skills, and achievements. Think of it as a snapshot of what you want an employer to know about you. While it is not meant to be a completely comprehensive list, it should highlight the skills and actions you have learned over your life that are relevant to the position you are applying or interviewing for. Resumes are generally 1 to 2 pages. If your resume is longer than 2 pages, it is best to take a look and make sure that you are highlighting different skills and achievements, and to check that each experience is relevant for the job you are applying for. Remember that those reading your resume are looking to get a quick understanding of your skills, abilities, and achievements, so you should be brief. My recommendation is to make sure you are showing a variety of skills. Think organization, customer service, management, rather than focusing on the same skills over and over. For example, I always end up wanting to talk about customer service and have to remind myself to think of other things that I do in my job. If your resume seems long, you can also take a look at your formatting and spacing, just to ensure that everything is readable and flows well. We will talk more about this later on. Now, when do you use a resume? And why should you even bother making a resume? Well, there are many times when having a resume is important and helpful. A resume may be required when applying for a job, for example. Some job applications will only ask for a resume, while others may ask about your employment history. Some ask for both. I will talk more about this difference in a moment, but just know that for many jobs, a resume is a required part of the application. A resume is also a great thing to have when attending a career or job fair. At career fairs, you usually interact with many different employers. So having a resume to hand out will not only make you memorable, but will also give recruiters an easy way to get in touch again later. With many career fairs going virtual right now, a digital resume to send out or to post on your LinkedIn page is more important than ever. Lastly, many schools, certificate programs, and scholarship applications also ask for resumes. Having one you can build on now will make that future paperwork all the easier. Before we get too far, I want to touch on how resumes and employment histories differ. While some job applications may consist of asking for your personal information and a copy of your resume, many will instead, or in addition to, ask for your employment history. Your employment history consists of the jobs you've had and generally asks for the organization name, your position title, your supervisor, the location, and your duties. This can sound a lot like a resume. Yet resumes are generally more tailored, meaning made for the job which you are applying for. While it is still important to list job duties that are relevant as part of your employment history, you can also include much more detail. This means that your resume should stand out as a marketing tool that quickly establishes you and your skills, where your employment history can be more comprehensive. This is why some organizations may have you fill out an employment history as part of the application and have you submit a resume. So it isn't just extra work, even though it might feel like it at the time. So now that you know what a resume is and when you might need a resume, we can talk about the different parts of a resume. I promise resumes will seem easy once we break it down. There are several parts or sections to a resume. These sections highlight different things about you for someone reading your resume. As we walk through each section, I will show an example of how that section can look and the information that is generally included. Depending on your formatting, your resume may look different. I will be using Michael Scott's resume as our example while we go over the different parts of a resume. We will start at the top of the resume and work our way down. The header of your resume may seem boring, but it is also probably the most important part to double check for accuracy, as that is how you can be contacted. Your header should consist of your first and last name. You may include your middle initial or middle name if you want, which could be helpful if you have a common name, your full mailing address, your phone number, and your email. One last thing to check is to make sure that the email address you plan on using looks professional. If not, consider making a new one for things like this. If you have a LinkedIn account, online portfolio, or professional website, you can also list those web addresses, and the header is a great place for them. One important thing to note is that if you plan on posting your resume publicly online, you should take off your home address and phone number for privacy. Have another version of your resume with that information included for when you send your resume out directly or when interviewing. One of the most important guidelines for resume writing is that everything should be consistent. That just means that things should match. So if you abbreviate things in your header, like street, also make sure to abbreviate the same throughout your resume. Generally, the next section is either experience or education. If you are a recent college graduate or are applying for a position which requires an advanced degree or a certification, I would recommend listing education next. That is because if there is an education or certification requirement in the job posting, then the hiring manager will want to quickly see that you meet those requirements. If there is not a requirement, or if you have a lot of relevant work experience, then I would probably put experience first. In our example, we will say that a degree was not required, and Michael has very relevant experience. So Michael chose to start with an experience section. The experience section will probably make up the bulk of your resume, though you can choose to break things down into more sections if you want. The experience section consists of the jobs that you have done and the skills and actions you took while doing them. One thing to remember is that you do not have to list every job you have ever had or list them in just this section. You could have a section that highlights your professional experience and a section that lists additional experience with jobs that may not be in the same field. You could also break things down by skill, like sales or customer service, with bullet statements below each. That is called a functional resume. In my experience, a reverse chronological resume is usually most frequently used, but you can experiment with a functional resume too. There are lots of examples of functional resumes online if you are interested. Take a look at some examples if you are considering this format. So Michael decided to start with an experience section and titled it Management Experience. He is using a reverse chronological style, meaning he will list his most recent jobs closest to the top, and oldest nearest the bottom of the section. But what does Michael need to include for each job? Each job must have the name of the business or organization, the location, city and state, his position title, and the dates he worked there, month and year until month and year. We see that Michael's most recent job is at the office supply company in Lincoln, Nebraska. He is currently the assistant manager and has worked in that position from March 2015 to present. Under each job, you will have what are called bullet statements. They are called this because they all have a bullet point. We will talk more about these later, but for now, know that this is where you would list what you did when working in that position. Another section you can have is activities. Activities are generally other things that you are involved in. This can be a spot to list volunteering that you do, any clubs that you belong to, or extra involvements that you have. Some people make volunteering its own section if they have done a lot. Or college students may list campus involvements. You are not limited in naming your sections as long as they accurately reflect what you are talking about and are relevant to what you are applying for. An activity section isn't required. Michael decided not to include one, but you definitely could. Each activity experience will look just like a job experience and include the same information. Like I mentioned earlier, recent graduates, or those applying for positions which require a degree, will probably want to list their education section first. Michael chose to list his education section further down, as that was not the most important section for the position he is applying for. If you have a college degree or advanced certification, you can choose not to list your high school experience. I generally recommend that if you are a junior in college, it is okay to no longer list high school things. In your education section, there are several key pieces of information to include: the school name, where the school is located, city and state, and the name of the degree or certificate. You can also include the date when you earned that degree or certificate if you would like, as well as your GPA. A good general rule is to include your GPA if it is a 3.20 or higher. This is how Michael listed his education. The next section we will look at is skills. Your skills section is a place to talk about your technical skills. In your other sections, your bullets will focus a lot on what are called soft skills, things like communication, creativity, organization, etc. Your technical skills are things that are generally harder to describe, but are instead things you just know. Generally, I think of computer skills and language skills. Let's look at some technical skills you can add. Computer skills would include things like Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Excel, maybe you know Photoshop or some other type of computer program. If you know a programming language like Python, you could include that. Or if you are applying for a position that involves social media or marketing, you may want to list social media and all of the platforms you're skilled in. Language skills are exactly what they sound like: a list of the other languages you know. If you speak only one language, I wouldn't include a language skills section. But if you know more than one language or know sign language, list that. I also suggest you include your proficiency, even if it's basic. Other skills that you could include are CPR or other certifications that are relevant to the position. If you have them and they are relevant, feel free comfortable adding those. Michael decided to list his computer skills, some industry-specific skills, and language skills. There are other sections you can include on a resume, and feel free. This is your resume and should focus on your accomplishments and skills. One of the sections you have probably seen before is an objective statement. When included, this is always the very first section below your header and focuses on what your objective is in applying for the job. You should always remember that an objective statement is more about what you can do for an employer than what they can do for you. Here's an example. Other sections you might see or choose to include are achievements, awards, and honors. This is the perfect spot to list your achievements, like being named Salesperson of the Year, winning an academic award, or being honored for something. I would suggest thinking about how they are relevant. For example, high school sports achievements are not always relevant anymore. Ask yourself, would an employer care about this now? For scholastic applications, listing academic accomplishments can be very important, even if you feel as though you wouldn't list them on a job resume. Remember, you can and should have more than one resume. We will talk about tailoring later, but the idea is that you will always want to consider who will be reading your resume and why. Here is a list of other sections you can include. I won't go through them all, but they are some ideas. You can also find excellent examples online if you are unsure of what information to include. Michael added some of his professional affiliations to show that he is involved in the industry he works in. See how they are formatted the same as his job experiences and include bullets? You do not have to include a bullet statement for every experience on a resume, nor is there a specific number you should do. I typically recommend including more bullet statements for more relevant things, and fewer for less relevant things. Where do you get the most value is the question I usually ask. Now, what exactly are bullet statements? Bullet statements are the real content of your resume, and they follow a specific experience or job. I like to think of each individual bullet statement as focusing on a specific skill or action, such as written communication or leadership. Here are some examples from Michael's resume. Feel free to pause the video if you'd like to read them. Now, let's look closely at the parts of a bullet statement. Bullet statements generally have three parts: the what, how, and why. Sometimes, when writing a bullet statement, it can even help to write out each part separately and then put them together. We will practice now. The what is what you did. You will start with a strong action verb that highlights the skill and action. Here are some examples. So, let's say Michael regularly consults with clients. The what portion of our bullet statement can be consult with 20 clients weekly over the phone. The how portion of what, how, why asks how you did the task. So, how did Michael consult with clients over the phone? It may initially seem obvious. Well, he answered the phone and talked to them, right? But think back to the skill, and always try to keep that as the focus. So Michael could say that the how was by asking questions to assess client needs and make sales recommendations. Now that we know the what and the how, we can think about the why. The why asks why you did that task or took that action. Again, rather than answer, well, because it was my job, think of the big picture of why you did that. I also like to think of the why as, why should the employer care? Let's look at what we have so far with the what and the how. So far we have consult with 20 clients weekly over the phone by asking questions to assess client needs and make sales recommendations. One why might be to exceed quarterly sales goals, or maybe to enhance customer service. You can typically find lots of ways to make bullet statements work. I will sometimes write out several versions. One thing I always recommend is to save all of the different versions of your bullet statements and experiences in a master resume document. I will talk more about this later. Let's look at a few more examples from Michael's resume and talk through them. The first bullet we see here is oversaw 4+ construction sites at a time by carefully monitoring work progress to solve problems and assign resources as needed. We see that the what was oversaw 4 construction sites at a time. The how is by carefully monitoring work progress to solve problems and assign resources as needed. And then the why there was the to solve problems and assign resources. So we see that there's the 3 parts in action. I usually think of the by as connecting the what and the how, and the to part connecting the why. And those words can change, but it kind of shows how the three parts work together. Here are some more examples, and feel free to pause to read these yourself. There are some things that you will want to avoid in your bullet statements. One of the most frequent things I see is incorrect verb tenses. If the experience you are listing was in the past, meaning that the experience has an end date listed and you are no longer working in that position, then your bullet statement should be in the past tense, like communicated with customers or solved problems. If you are currently doing the job, then your bullet statement will be in the present tense, so communicate with customers, solve problems, etc. You will also want to avoid long paragraph length descriptions of your experiences. These may be okay for a job history, but remember that a bullet statement should answer the what, how, and why. If a bullet statement is over 2 lines on your resume, you will probably want to consider what information is essential and what is bullet clutter, or break up the bullet statement into multiple parts. Also, avoid including personal pronouns, such as my, I, our, or we. These will keep the focus on the skill and the actions that you took. The last thing to avoid in bullet statements is listing generic skills that lack proof. If you supervised employees, quantify how many. For example, supervised 5 employees by overseeing daily activities of the restaurant to accurately evaluate performance quarterly. Or if you say that you're a team player, make sure that you have an example of when you worked on a team. One of the best ways to make your resume stand out is to tailor it to the job you are applying for. Tailoring means that you write bullets and structure your resume to best fit that particular job. This will make you stand out more than if you were to use a general resume. To start tailoring, I recommend you closely read the job description. What words stand out? Let's look at an example. Here is an example of a job description. Let's read closely. The paper company is seeking a skilled manager to lead a new office in Scranton, Pennsylvania. This person will be responsible for supervising a team of 20 as they work to generate sales for the company. Communication and problem-solving skills are essential as the manager works to develop business strategies and create an efficient organization. The paper company looks forward to hiring someone who is passionate about finding the perfect product to meet client needs. In this example, what jumps out to me are the words supervising a team, generate sales, communication, problem solving, develop business strategies, efficient, and client needs. Making note of this, I would make sure to include these words in some of my bullet statements. Sometimes this may mean starting a new bullet statement that highlights that skill. Michael maybe didn't have a bullet statement about problem solving, so now he knows he should include one. Tailoring can also consist of changing some of your current bullet statements to include some of the key terms we found in the job description. Michael decided to rework this bullet statement. Manage an office of 10 employees by overseeing daily activities to ensure successful business operations. He tailored it to supervise a team of 10 employees by overseeing daily activities to solve problems and ensure efficient business operations. By reworking the bullet statement that Michael already had, we were able to include 4 elements from the job description. Now, why tailor? There are several reasons to do this. Most hiring managers are reviewing and scoring many applications. So the closer the language to what they are looking for, the better your chances. The other reason is that some organizations use applicant tracking systems to evaluate resumes, which will scan a resume and see how closely it matches the job description. The higher the match, the more likely it will be evaluated by a person. That is not to say that your resume should match the job description exactly, but tailoring is a strategic way to more closely reflect how your skills align to the job. One last tip. as you rework bullet statements, save them in a master resume document. There may be times that the other version of the bullet or extra bullet statements that you didn't use will be helpful for a future application. There's no sense wasting the work that you already put in. Now, formatting resumes can be hard. Microsoft Word is probably what is most frequently used, and some of the spacing controls and other things can be difficult if you're not used to them. I regularly have to look things up. Generally, a quick search online or YouTube will provide you with a tutorial going over what you are trying to do. The template available follows the best practices on this slide. But if you want to adjust formatting on a resume that you are already working on, or would just like to make your own, here are some recommendations. Use a common font that is easy to read with a 10 to 12 point size. Set the margins for your resume between 0.5 to 1 inch. Your resume should nicely fill the page. If you have too much space at the bottom, use larger margins, up to 1 inch. If you are going over a page, try shrinking your margins down some. You should bold, italicize, and underline parts of your resume with intention. Ask yourself how to make sections stand out, to have jobs clearly defined. You can also use color on a resume, but I would say that if you choose to do that, to make sure that it is legible and clear without being overwhelming. Limit yourself to 1 to 2 pages, depending on your experience and your industry. Avoid fancy resume templates for online applications. Many large employers do use applicant tracking systems, and often resume templates are built using text boxes and other things that make it so this software is unable to scan your resume, meaning that you may not be considered. If you're making a resume to hand out, then these kinds of templates are usually okay. Avoid clip art, borders, or photos. These will make your resume look busy, and again, can interfere with those applicant tracking systems. Lastly, avoid inconsistencies in your formatting. So make sure that the layout is the same for each section, that you are consistent in your spacing, and that your formatting, like bolding things and font size, match. As a reminder, this video shows how to do a basic resume that can be used for most jobs. Some industries may be used to seeing different sections that most people wouldn't use. Look up some resume examples online and consult someone in the industry you are interested in. Most people are happy to provide advice and make suggestions. Now that you know what a resume is, when a resume is used, the different parts of a resume, and how to write bullet statements, let's review with a new example. This is Alexandria's resume, and she is a college student. We see that Alexandria started with her header section, which includes her full name, her address, city and state and zip code, her phone number, her email address, and she would list her LinkedIn URL. Since Alexandria is still a college student, she decided to list her education section next. Here we see what school she's going to, the city and state it's in, her degree. Alexandria included her anticipated graduation date, her major, her minor, and her GPA. Alexandria then listed her relevant experience section. Feel free to pause if you want to read the bullet statements in depth. But we see here that for each position, she listed the organization name, the location, her position title, and the dates she worked there. Of note, we see that her Nebraska Pioneer Bank position, where she's a teller, she listed present, meaning she's still working there. The next section Alexandria listed is her involvement section. We see here that she's the social media chair of Alpha 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 sorority in Lincoln, Nebraska, and she listed some bullet statements to go along with that. Alexandria also listed an additional experience section. Alexandria likely did this because she thought these jobs weren't as relevant to things that she might be applying for as a marketing major, so these were further down. And that's a big thing in resumes, is that the most relevant things will want to be toward the top, so that's what the first thing that a hiring manager will see. So here we have her additional experience. She was a server at Smith's Bar and Grill, and she's been a nanny for private families. Lastly, Alexandria included a skills section. Now, because she's interested in marketing, she included her social media experience. She also included her computer skills and her language skills, noting that she's fluent in written and verbal proficiency in Spanish. So now that you know all about how to create a resume, I want to talk a little bit about the resources currently available to you from Lincoln City Libraries, which are completely free. These resources can be found by going to lincolnlibraries.org, hovering over the Resources tab at the top of the screen, and clicking on Online Resources. If you are using a Lincoln City Libraries computer or our Wi-Fi, then you can go to the next step. Otherwise, you will log in with your library card number and PIN number. If you do not have a library card or are unsure of what your PIN number is, please call us at 402-441-8500 and we can help you. Once you log in or select that you are on a library computer or our Wi-Fi, there is a big list of online resources. You can work your way through alphabetically or select the Business, Consumer, Employment Resources category. These are the 5 resources I will talk about in this presentation. The first resource I will talk about is Data Axle, which was formerly called Reference USA. Data Axle has multiple databases that you can use to search. You can search for information on businesses as well as jobs and internships. This is an especially valuable tool if you're looking to start your own business and want to do competitive research, contact professionals in an industry of interest, or apply for jobs. With an easy-to-navigate search that has you input the information that you know, this is a great tool that is really easy to use. Next, we have Job Now, powered by BrainFuse. Job Now provides you access to resume, job interview, and other career help. There are resume templates with helpful instructions, the ability to submit your resume to be reviewed by an expert, instructional videos, and even live resume help. There are also interviewing tips, the ability to connect to a live interview expert, live career coaching, career assessment tools, and much more. This is one of my favorite online resources. The Morningstar Investment Research Center provides a vast amount of information to help you make investment decisions. With information on companies, funds, ETFs, markets, articles, and trainings, Morningstar is a really useful financial tool. The Small Business Reference Center is also ideal for research. With a searchable database of books, journals, and articles, this database is excellent if you have questions about a profession. It is also ideal for small business owners and entrepreneurs, as there is a special section dedicated to startups and business plan development. Lastly, let's take a look at the Testing and Education Reference Center. This resource provides practice tests, lessons, and general information, and there is something for just about anyone who is working on academic or career materials. This online resource is perfect for those seeking to learn basic skills, high school students, those preparing for college, those working or preparing to work in careers, students preparing for grad school tests, scholarship searchers, and international individuals. The career resources include test prep help for a variety of professions, a career and technical school search, Microsoft tutorials, career assessment tools, a virtual career library, and resume and cover letter creation tools. The Visual CV Resume Creator tool in the Testing and Education Reference Center allows for easy customization of your resume without formatting worries. This tool does use text boxes, so if you are concerned about submitting your resume online to a business that may use applicant tracking software, I would recommend that you select the Share and Download Word option to check for text boxes and make adjustments as needed. There is also a mobile app available for this resource, which makes it all the more convenient. I recommend exploring these resources as you have the time. You will be surprised at just how much information you can find. Sometimes our access to online resources can change, so if you are not finding one of these, feel free to ask library staff. We covered a lot in this program, and I so appreciate you watching. We hope that this presentation was helpful to you. If you are interested in seeing more content related to career help and advice, let us know. And if you have any questions about Lincoln City Libraries and our resources, please take a look at our website, lincolnlibraries.org, or contact us at 402-441-8500. You can also follow Lincoln City Libraries on social media to stay up to date with library programs and news. Thanks for watching.